In the state criminal justice system here in Massachusetts, all cases are litigated in either the district court or the superior court. If you are arrested, your case will start in the district court with an arraignment. In order for a case to eventually land in superior court, a defendant must be indicted by a grand jury, which I will explain. The district court has jurisdiction to resolve any and all misdemeanors, as well as a number of felony crimes. The maximum term of imprisonment that anyone faces for any crime that stays in the district court is up to 2.5 years in the House of Corrections. The Superior Court has jurisdiction over all of those cases, as well as jurisdiction over the most serious felony charges, which the district court does not have such jurisdiction over. The Superior Court may sentence a defendant to any prison term called for under the law, up to life in prison for the most serious felonies. 95% of criminal cases stay in the district court. The other 5% of cases are brought to the Superior Court at the discretion and by way of the prosecution. If a person is arrested for a serious felony that can only be resolved in the Superior Court, but the prosecution decides that the circumstances of the case don't necessarily warrant going through that process, then the prosecutor might lessen the charges to ones that can be resolved in the district court in order to keep it there, to avoid the whole grand jury process. If the allegations are extreme, the prosecution will proceed in the Superior Court rather than lessening the charges. Sometimes, the prosecution will decide to bring a case to Superior Court that could have been resolved in the District Court for a variety of reasons, including a defendant's lengthy criminal history, or the egregiousness of the facts in the case, or the high publicity that the case has received in the media. If an investigation is complicated, the grand jury process may be utilized before anyone is even arrested if the prosecutor wants to get all of its ducks in a row before formally charging somebody. That's called the direct indictment. So what's the grand jury process? It's essentially a secret panel made up of members of the public who hear evidence presented by the prosecutor, including witness testimony as well as physical evidence. This panel of grand jurors decides whether there is evidence sufficient to show that a crime has been committed, and if so, who's committing those crimes. The defendant and his or her attorney are not present during this presentation. They will have the opportunity to fight the charges later in court if the grand jury returns a true bill, meaning that most of the grand jurors have decided that there's enough evidence to at least proceed with the case, resulting in an indictment. This is a far cry from the burden of proof beyond a reasonable doubt required at trial. The prosecutor has essentially unchecked power during this grand jury investigation, presenting any and all evidence without any objection, and the prosecutor's expertise in criminal law is usually deferred to by the grand jury when they are asked to return an indictment. So the old saying goes, a prosecutor could indict a ham sandwich for a crime if he wanted to. Fortunately, if you are indicted, your lawyer will have the ability to examine the transcripts of everything that took place during that grand jury investigation. And that will usually be a focal point with how to defend the indictments against you. If you are indicted, you will then be scheduled for an arraignment in Superior Court, after which the district court proceedings are done. You're now in the big leagues, where the prosecutors are much more seasoned, the resources to prosecute you are much greater, and you could face years in state prison for more serious felonies. The criminal process against you will be much more complicated, time-consuming, and tolling on you personally. If you've been indicted or may potentially be indicted, it's important to contact an experienced criminal defense lawyer who specializes in superior court cases so that he or she may defend your rights as soon as possible.